Never let a good crisis go to waste. And there's some positive in that you can use a crisis to advance some advancement for your country and maybe get some things done that may not have been able to be done during a more regular time. But in our terms, it seems like the kind of waste that we think about when we're thinking about crisis is political points, because the only thing that they aren't going to let waste is the political points. The strange thing about all of this is the political points that each team tries to score seems like they're scoring against themselves. The starting of this week had a whole incident being played off over some tent hospitals, some additional field hospitals, and who wants to claim credit for the field hospitals. Bear in mind, these field hospitals are to help sick people who may be dying. But no, let's make sure we get enough points to be scored in and around here so that some people could look good because of this. That's what we're looking for. Government slams UNC lies on field hospitals donated by US. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and Health Minister Terence Deyalsingh have accused the opposition of taking political credit for the donation of 2 field hospitals by the US government to aid in TNT's COVID-19 fight. In a tit-for-tat that unfolded on social media, the United National Congress (UNC) thanked the United States for its donation and credited its leader's call at a political forum on Monday night for the development. Hey, wait. Before we go on, don't forget to click that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed before, and you can click the notification bell too so that you'd know when new videos are coming out. Share it to your friends, share it to your family. Well, that's if you like what's going on. If you don't like what's going on and you don't like the topic and you like to correct me on how I saw things, well, feel free to comment and tell me where I saw wrong. So all of this petty credit-taking business was unfolding right before the public's eyes on social media because Dr. Rowley took to Facebook to condemn the UNC for the attempt to take credit, calling the opposition party shameless liars. Deyalsingh said the donation was the result of an agreement between the US government and the National Security Ministry in September 2020. Further, he said the assembly on the first field hospital began on Monday. And by the way, the forum that Mrs. Prasad Bisesa made the call where she tried to get these hospitals and made an appeal to get them was also on Monday. Not to be insulted by the government and the Prime Minister, the opposition leader responded to these criticisms as the country recorded its highest number of COVID-19 deaths yesterday. Opposition leader Kamala Prasad Bisesa slammed Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley for boasting that 2 field hospitals from the United States set up in Cuba were the results of talks last year. In a statement yesterday, Prasad Bisesa said, day after day our nation records heartbreaking statistics which could have been prevented if there was an effective government in place. She said, now, when all the institutions and medical staff are under pressure and this deadly virus is plaguing our population, resulting in a worrying mortality rate, the Prime Minister's main concern is to bully and beat his chest to gloat that the 2 field hospitals that were donated by the United States government are the result of an agreement made dating back to last year. She said, okay, Prime Minister, do you feel better? Can you now please take action and protect our citizens? Now, this I find is actually, in a sense, some clever political maneuvering and in a sense, some really petty schoolyard nonsense. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa here is trying to turn this around and point it back at him and bring him into the limelight so that the points to be lost would be his. The sad part to me and to the citizens is that this isn't really a matter of points, their lives at risk, and these conversations aren't building any more to it. But she did tune in with some questions there. She threw back some questions toward him. She said she had several questions for Rowley to answer, including what are the ICU and HDU capacity and capability? Why is the mortality rate at record highs? Are the deaths mostly persons who did not survive the ICU? What percentage of new cases are the result of the Brazilian P1 variant? Do we have a strategy to specifically deal with this? How many COVID cases have died at their homes without hospital care? How many doctors and nurses are assigned to look after critical cases in the hospitals? Is it true there are woeful resources resulting in a lack of proper and stringent monitoring care to look after critical patients? Do we have enough medicines to look after the sick? Now, all of these questions are very pertinent. My main problem to all of these questions, and you could go find the article, it's Kamala Rowley boasts while virus plaguing. It's an Express article. Feel free to read all the rest of questions that she had for him. But my problem with these questions is she's asking these questions after the whole incident and the whole back and forth is done. Because These weren't the original questions she was asking. She's angry at him for seemingly boasting and sulking over who is to take the reward and who is to take the credit for bringing in these field hospitals. What she did in fact ask the question, she did in fact bring up the petty side of this entire thing from the beginning. The UNC released an official statement on the whole matter, and in this statement they sought to say that the Prime Minister and the government on a whole have a lot to be thankful to our gracious opposition leader for, and that they should be thankful to her instead of trying to discredit her for bringing in these US field hospitals to our country. She made the suggestion on Monday, they said, and they said at no time did the Ministry of Health or Keith Rowley ever indicate that this option was available. So because the government didn't indicate that the option was available, when she made the statement on Monday, she was the main driving force behind this US engineer team coming and helping to set up these field hospitals that they first set up on Monday before she even made the statement. According to the UNC, Keith Rowley should thank Kamala Persad-Bissessar for bringing up the matter on Monday. To be certain, Keith Rowley has much for which to be thankful to Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Keith Rowley should thank Kamala Persad-Bissessar for the 230-bed Couva Hospital. He could look next to the field hospital and he would see it. Keith Rowley should thank Kamala Persad-Bissessar for the 218 extra beds at the San Fernando Teaching Hospital. They also said Keith Rowley should thank Kamala Persad-Bissessar for the Arima Hospital, expanded facilities at Cora Hospital, the Point Fortin Hospital, the Debe Campus, which he refused to open due to his spite and hatred, for the Tennis Center, and for writing to the government of India for the donation of AstraZeneca vaccines. The UNC said Keith Rowley has plunged this country into the worst crisis our nation has ever experienced. Instead of looking for cheap distractions, he should focus his mind on procuring vaccines for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I agree, we should turn away from cheap distractions. We are well into the second term of since she has already lost, and we are supposed to thank her for the hospitals that were built by our money and by whoever the contractors may have been, and also under the heavy shroud of corruption. I'm sorry, I'm not very thankful for those things in that sense. I'm grateful that our infrastructure is able to hold up with some of the difficulties that we are able to face, but I'm not sure how thankful and grateful I am for a specific politician for building this. Because the truth and the fact of it is, oftentimes the politicians aren't much in the process of actually getting things done. They're following the advice of others and they're working with the expertise of others. And also many of the times, the politicians' main job in this is to extract wealth from the country and repurpose it to their own benefit. But this shows to me part of the problem in the UNC, our opposition party. The nature of how our politics work. I understand the need for a figurehead and for a leader, and that you cement your party and your movement around the leader. But what the UNC has done is made the UNC into Kamala's party. So she is the supreme leader of this party, and there's nothing can be done about it to oust her, as we saw in their own internal election. And that's a problem for them, because your leader has lost a lot of elections in a row, and it doesn't seem like she's going to change into a winning habit anytime soon. The only election she can win is the internal election, and that's a problem for the UNC, which is a problem for our opposition party, which is a problem for us in Trinidad and our entire country as a whole. Because if our opposition party is incapable of mounting a substantive opposition, a real opposition that can actually bring some threat of loss of power to the government, then they aren't fulfilling their main mandate and being a countermeasure to our government. The questions that the UNC asked, maybe those were the questions they should have asked, instead of our opposition leader attempting to take credit for a field hospital that she already saw building. It's a bit too late to even try to take the high road on the field hospital issue, because our opposition leader did make the claim. Well, she didn't literally make the claim, the UNC, her party made the claim. And again, I think that comes from a place of trying to inflate the leader to an unrealistic size, where even I don't even think the UNC members and their own followers believe a lot of these things, and that a lot of these things gain favor within the party also. It's a self-sabotaging move. The UNC says the 2 40-bed field hospitals the US donated to this country were the result of opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar's plea to the Prime Minister to request them. They made the claim, big and bold, publicly, that these field hospitals were a reward because of the hard work of our opposition leader. And they kept making the claim also that the doses we got from India were as a result of our opposition leader's letter too. But the Indian government has already negated that. It's a government-to-government relation. And the problem I have with this is it seems like our opposition leader is attempting to do the jobs of a prime minister. And okay, I know what supporters of the UNC would say, and they would say that she's doing this because the prime minister is failing at his job. But the reality of it is that she cannot even do these jobs. These jobs are impossible for somebody in her position to actually do. So these claims they're making of her great achievements aren't really matching up with reality. And I don't even think they're convincing anyone. I don't think it's a winning strategy, but they're free to continue if they think it is, and they're free to attempt to score points during a country's downtime. And I personally think this is a horrible time to attempt to score points. The release from the UNC called Mrs. Prasad-Bissasa's suggestions yet another bold, innovative solution, adding to the long list of solutions Prasad-Bissasa has been suggesting to save the country. That sounds like the press release in North Korea that someone would make, or in China about the supreme leader. That sounds ridiculous. What do you mean a long list of solutions Prasad-Bissasa has been suggesting to save the country? Okay, even if she does have a long list of solutions, maybe it would make more sense if we as the citizenry see that it seems like the attempts are to get these solutions to be effectively placed into order by the government. And this has nothing to do with support or detraction of the government. It has to do with the balance that our political system requires. Our political system needs a good opposition to create for this balance. And in a time like the pandemic, when questions are being asked, and then some of the questions have such a technical nature that they may be difficult to ask for the common citizens to get these answers from the government, it would be great if our opposition has the gravitas, has the respectability in our society that people can trust them to ask the questions that some people may even be afraid to ask, and maybe ask them in such a way that some people may be able to get their questions answered. The vaccine hesitancy is a problem that we're facing, especially in the Caribbean, especially in the Americas, and the scientists, the health officials are saying that the way out of this pandemic is through vaccination, through herd immunity. So, okay, maybe the opposition can be a voice for those that are opposing even these things, that they can create the atmosphere where they can ask these questions and find the answers out to them. But as it stands now, the government has the excuse of saying, well, we don't take the opposition seriously. And they do say, many of the leading politicians, many of the politicians in leadership right now in our ruling party would say, when confronted with a question or a suggestion from our opposition, say, well, we don't take them seriously. And they are able to get away with such a thing because few people do take the opposition seriously. And when you're trying to take credit for field hospitals and doses of vaccines from India, many people are seeing this, so they aren't taking the opposition seriously. So when the government uses it as an excuse, a question is brought forward that says, okay, this was an opposition MP brought up this question. What do you all have to say about it? They can now say, well, nobody takes them seriously, and brush off this question. And who loses from this? The country on a whole. That's not good. But even as all these arguments are being made about the field hospitals, some people are watching these field hospitals and are worrying over it, because it seems to say that our health system is being overrun and we are in dire need. So some people are seeing this as a bad sign on a whole. The Prime Minister sought, though, to allay some of these fears by saying the fact that the United States gave TNT 2 military-type field hospitals to cater for potential increased bed demand doesn't mean the COVID-19 virus is out of control. Prime Minister Keith Rowley indicated this yesterday after revealing the U.S. assistance on TTT's Now Morning show with host Natalie Lego. He said, we expanded capacity to respond in the event we require more beds. If we get more infected and if there's a demand for more bed space, you use field hospitals to increase bed space in the short term. This is a response to what's happening as we experience higher level of infection and demand for bed spaces. The hospitals will have 40 bed capacity, each with HDU and ICU spaces. So the Prime Minister is saying this is a preventative measure. It's a just-in-case measure. As we're seeing the infection rates increase, it's not necessarily that we do need the beds already, but just in case that we do need them, it would make more sense that we have the added capacity there and we are safe in that realm. There are beds in case the infection rates rise and in case more people are requiring beds. We're hoping that that isn't the case and that less people are in need of beds, and that hopefully that someday we wake up and the COVID stats that are released on that day said, breaking news, the number has decreased. It's what we can hope for, and I'll see you in the next video.